Welcome back, everybody, to the Season of Encounters. That's right, the Squatters Lounge podcast is live. It's Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific. Do you know where your squatters are? Tonight, we're heading on out to Montana, a place on fire. Let's talk about it before it burns to the ground. No, that's not even funny. Seriously, the place is on fire like never before. But we're going to talk about it because there's a few things we want to get to. Hello, everybody. I am indeed the Reverend Jeff Kelly, the shepherd of lost sheep. That's right. And we are here tonight to talk about Bigfoot. And we're going to get it on with a little bit of the news. First thing out of the box. Let's see what's coming up here for us tonight. Kentucky resident sees reptilian humanoid posted on September 5th. That's right. The solar eclipse must have brought them in, sir. I don't know exactly what's going on, but apparently a Kentucky resident claims he saw the reptilian humanoid. The man who says he saw the entity twice explains he was sitting in his dining room when the first creature showed up. It was dark outside. I had an extremely strong feeling to look outside. When I looked out the window, I saw a dark and slim figure standing about 10 feet away from the house. The eyewitness says the being then looked at him with his piercing red eyes. It's always the piercing red eyes that gets you. They looked like they were glowing. The second time he reportedly saw it, he was unable to notice more of its physical. He was able to notice more of its physical details. I was driving home from work. It was around 10 p.m. I turned onto my street when I saw it walking by. The man then claims he pulled over and was able to watch a dark green, scaly creature with big red eyes. The being, he says, then ran in front of his car and quickly disappeared into the woods. That's when he contacted MUFON. Yeah, of course you go out and contact MUFON, not your local police department. That would be silly. Anyhow, moving right along. Fossil era. That's right. New fossil discovery. Olive, a primitive horse ancestor from the Green River Formation. The spring of 2015, the Green River Formation near Kemmerer, Wyoming. Wow, there's a lot of errs in there. Yielded another amazing fossil discovery, a fully articulated primitive horse ancestor, since nicknamed Olive, was found by brothers Mark and Mike Oliver. While this locality is known worldwide for its amazingly preserved fish fossils, they immediately knew they had discovered something very different and special. Look at that thing. That's pretty cool. A primitive horse species. I always thought the Spanish brought horses here. Independent tells us an established story about how humans came from Africa may be wrong. Claims a controversial new study. Read shitstorm of scientists can't agree. A footprint could rewrite the entire narrative of human evolution, according to researchers that discovered it. The belief that humans came out of Africa millions of years ago is widely believed, but it might be about to be entirely rewritten, according to the authors of a new study that claims to have found a footprint in Crete that could change the narrative of early human evolution. Suggests that our ancestors were in modern Europe far earlier than we ever thought. They accept the story of human lineage has been largely set since researchers found fossils of our early ancestors in South and Eastern Africa in the middle of the 20th century. Later discoveries appeared to suggest that those that followed remained isolated in Africa for millions of years before finally moving out and into Europe and Asia. But the new discovery of the footprint that appears to have belonged to a human that trod down in Crete 5.7 million years ago challenges the story. Humans may have left and been exploring other continents, including Europe, far earlier than we know. Yep, I would check out and find 3 more sources on that before I would bother to believe it. Moving right along here to the BBC News, an Amazon study discovers 381 new species in a 2-year period. Now, I mean, we talk about new species being discovered all the time, large species being discovered all the time. Well, researchers have discovered 381 new species during a 2-year study in the Amazon region. The report by the WWF, you stole my wrestling name, jackasses, conservation body of Brazil, something or other, Institute for Sustainable Development, said that on average, new species was discovered every 2 days. I mean, that kind of takes the hip hip hooray out of it, doesn't it? If you're finding a new species, oh look, it's another one, Bob. Some guys go their entire life looking for a new species, while Bob finds one every 2 days. Well, screw you, Bob. But all the newly discovered animals and plants were found in areas at risk from human activity. The authors warn more than 2,000 new species were found between 1999 and 2015. The report established in San Paulo on Wednesday is the third in a series in the years of 2014 and 2015. 216 new plants, 93 new fish, 32 new amphibians, 20 new mammals, 19 new reptiles, and a bird. That's right. I mean, new discoveries in a 2-year period. That is apparently this dog wants nothing to do with the woods in Pinehurst, Idaho. Look at him. He's really, really not happy. The Oxford English Dictionary defines the word cryptid as an animal whose existence or survival is disputed or unsubstantiated, such as the Yeti. For the following witness to living cryptids, there is no dispute. In the summer of 2005, I was clearing out saplings on a family tree farm near Pinehurst, Idaho. I was using brush trimmers, and I had my Cocker Spaniel Toby with me. I was in the middle of clearing a patch of saplings when my dog Toby sprinted underneath my car. This was very unusual, as my dog wasn't scared of chainsaws, cars, or general wildlife. I looked under my car and tried to coax him out, but he wouldn't budge. I had to drag him out by his collar, where he was acting very agitated. It was then that I heard the branches breaking about 50 meters south of me in the bushes, and I began to smell a horrible stench. This was like a garbage combined with rotten feces bad smell. I also had a feeling, which didn't feel like it originated with me, that I was in immediate danger and needed to leave ASAP. I quickly got into my car and left. Quickly. I'm guilty of that. I have been at the site with other people several times in the years since, and nothing else has happened. I spoke to my dad about this, and he hasn't had any incidents of that kind, and all he has been alone at that site for hours, multiple times per year for the past 60 years. I still won't go up there alone to this day. Doggies and Bigfoot. I don't know. I have my dogs up in Bigfoot territory. They didn't act weird. They had a good time. We're pretty sure the Bigfoot were around too. Okay. Speaking of Montana, the Big Sky Bigfoot Conference 2017 is about to be unleashed September 22nd and 23rd. Bitterroot River Inn and Conference Center, 139 Bitterroot Plaza Drive in Hamilton, Montana. You can find their website at bigskyconference.com. You can buy your tickets right there. Adult is $25. Apparently, they're showing Boggy Creek Monster for all special one-time screening, and there'll be all kind of activities, door prizes, speakers, exhibits, and that type of thing. September 22nd and 23rd, just a couple of weeks away. I keep seeing this all over Facebook, and I finally tracked it down. The art of Claudio Bergman. I'm pretty sure. Bergman art, the Patterson Gimlin film 50th anniversary art signed by Gimlin and Bergman. It's awesome. I mean, this particular print for some reason just speaks to me, and I finally tracked down where it came from. So the Claudio Bergman.myshopify.com is that dude's website, and he has a couple of other cool Bigfoot prints up there as well. Speaking of other cool Bigfoot prints, I don't know why that's not really the segue I wanted to have. Coming up tomorrow, the very first ever vinyl power. That's right. Me and my buddy Kurt Harris are taking on Vinyl Records by storm. More information than you can shake a stick at about our favorite vinyls and why it makes them that way. So tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, check us out for Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast, and Black Sabbath's first album. I am super, super excited about it. So, with that is the news. That's right, everybody. And what do we do after the news? Well, we talk about our quasi theory of the week. Mr. Dean Cooper. That's right. He's going to give us our quasi theory of the week. He finally got around to making a brand new one, and we are happy to share it with you guys. So here you go. And what it has to do with quasi theories. And now, quasi theories from a quasi scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
Dragons. What with the Game of Thrones on HBO, Harry Potter, The Hobbit, and a near endless seeming number of other movies, TV shows, computer games ad infinitum, dragons are stuck in our popular cultural mind. Dragons, of course, never existed. There were never any big, scaly, lizardy, wingedy, fire-breathing, gold-hoarding, flying snakes with legs, eating stray maidens or killing the unwary hero. You can speculate things like, say, Europeans, for example, would find the occasional Nile crocodile had swum across the Mediterranean and cruised into a port in southern Italy and declared that croc to be a dragon. Nile crocodiles have done that rarely, but really they have. Europeans, though, have been traveling to Africa since ancient times and certainly knew what a crocodile was, and it wasn't a dragon. Our word dragon comes from the Greek word drakon, which meant serpent, snake, usually a really big one. Most ancient cultures have big snakes in their mythology. Sometimes they have legs, sometimes they have wings. Lots of times they have more than one head. The Indo-European ones have heroes killing them and getting a prize, usually a fair maiden. Thor killed the Midgard serpent. Hercules killed the Hydra. Indra killed Vritra. Zeus killed Typhon. Jason killed the dragon of Colchis and got the golden fleece. Chinese dragons are a bit different. They fly but have no wings. More importantly, they are wise and beneficent. They associate with the wise and holy and protect those who are worthy of their aid, bringing them wisdom and good fortune. So, killing or otherwise dominating, a Western dragon wins you good things. Becoming friends with a Chinese dragon also brings good things. So what is a dragon serpent supposed to mean, mythologically speaking? Well, myths, like dragons, can be multi-headed beasts. The head I'm going with for now is the one that dragons are a symbol for the mind. The Western hero fights for control over the hydra-headed mess that is the mind of most of us. Get that dragon under control and things go better for you. The Eastern wise man, also a hero, makes friends with his mind, and then that dragon willingly helps him. Rather than dragging this dragon on forever, I'll stop here and drag my ass away from my computer. You may read the text of this on my blog at bydean.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
Well, thank you for that deep look into Nile crocodiles and dragons. Although Game of Thrones has promised us boobies and dragons, they've delivered us floppy wieners and wanting of dragons. But though this year we had dragons. Woohoo! Speaking of dragons, let's get this out of here. And let's get back to talking about Sham Squinch. Actually, we're going to say hello to all of you guys out there watching live tonight in the Squanchers Lounge podcast hangout. If you aren't here Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific, then I don't know that you're in the chat box, so I can't say hi to you. Let's see who's out there tonight. Starting off with, there's my drunken Irish dad, Mr. Ryan McGinty. He doesn't buy me anything, and he doesn't smell like Irish Spring. But still, I slap my chest and sing of my drunken Irish dad. Hey, Ryan, glad you're out there. Matthew Gaines, there's another one out there. Oreo Cream Rocks, she's in the house tonight. Candy Apple's also there. There's a Starshine going hi, hi, hi. Dean Cooper, he's checking it out tonight. Mr. What Was That? There's Danny L., Jeremy Harrison, Keith Harden, Lance Windsor, Cheryl Wellen, Rob Robbles. Yeah, I always forget the E. I don't know why it's buffering, brother. Try hitting the refresh on it, or uninstalling it and reinstalling it. That usually helps. Rod Dupree, he's always in the place to be. Your Hobo Man 5. How you doing there, Chief? John Briers is in the house. If I didn't say Matthew Gaines earlier, I sure enough did now. There's Jen. How you doing there, man? There's my co-host for tomorrow's night's Vinyl Power, Mr. Kurt Harris. Natalie Smith is in the house. Let's see here. I know there's more people. Did I say Stephen Bridges? If I didn't, I have now. Natalie Smith, I know I said hi, but you like to hear it twice. So hi, Natalie. I'm sure that Cassie and the Squatch Box and Christopher's out there listening, as well as Gary and Whitney White. They're bringing that food to the table, so you never know if they can get in live. Mama Renee 32, how you doing? So glad you're in the house as well. I know there's more people than this because I saw you talking earlier. Let's see here. I know I'm just stalling now because there's a whole bunch of just emojis in there, just being gritty. I'm not exactly sure why. Oh yeah, that's because you were crying over 3 minutes. Goodbye. Sorry, didn't mean to be rude about it. There's a brown dwarf. Zemmer. If I didn't say your name before, I did now. Yeah, I didn't. Cat Yarborough. Glad you're out there as well. I'm almost to the top, so if I haven't said your name yet, you better put your name and say hi at the bottom so I can get to you before I get out of here tonight, because we've got encounters from Montana to talk about. That's right. Okay, so I'm going to get back down to the bottom here and see if I missed anybody. If I did, I am sorry, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. When you're in a live event, I try to keep up with everybody. Jonathan Doty, there he is. He's in the house as well. So Jay Gerd, he checked in while I was up there looking out. Okay, I think I have finally got everybody. Excellent. So glad you guys are here, because I'm here, you're there, and that's what makes this whole thing awesome. That's right. So let's see where we are talking about tonight. We are talking about Montana. Missoula County, Montana specifically, has the second highest or shared highest amount of Bigfoot reports in Montana itself. And as you can see, you can probably see why. It sits basically in between 3 national forests. So I'm sure that that's where we'll end up hearing where these stories are coming from. So focused in there, so maybe you can see the names of the cities as they actually come along in our encounters tonight. Starting off with the first official encounter back in 1977, summertime in Missoula County, wooded area behind the wilderness area off the Rattlesnake Wilderness, outskirts of Missoula itself. Let's see here. I was riding my horse in the summertime in a wooded area bordering the Rattlesnake Wilderness in the outskirts of Missoula, Montana, and my horse stopped dead in its tracks as we rode through a meadow. Face to face with a Bigfoot. It was about 10 feet away from me. It was peeking out from behind a tree. Stood there, looking at me, didn't make a sound. I slowly turned my horse around and I ran home. It must have stood at least 7 feet or more. That was the only time I'd ever witnessed it. In a recent summer seasons, loud screams have been heard near the Clark Fork River outside of Missoula, usually between midnight and dawn. And that was from an 11-year-old fella. We always like to hear the young people usually don't make this stuff up there, especially if they're bringing it forward to adults. In summertime, July, the Flathead Indian Reservation near an area known as Ibaro. Okay, about 20 miles northwest of Missoula, Montana itself, Highway 93. I was working in my father's wood shop when my older brother, 19 at the time, burst through the door. He was nearly out of breath and very distraught looking. He immediately demanded that I come outside right now. I asked him what was wrong, but he just said, "Come out here right now." He followed him outside. It was late in the afternoon. The sun was just beginning to wane in the deeper parts of the forest. I asked him what was the matter. He told me to shush and said, "Listen." I could hear that our grandparents' dog was going berserk. I could also recognize the bark of our dog in the distance as well. I asked my brother what was going on with the dogs as if they were fighting again. He said, "Shh, not the dogs. Listen." We were both silent. I didn't hear anything. I asked him what I was supposed to be listening for. He said he heard something really weird, really freaky. I asked him what it sounded like. He said he couldn't really explain it, just that it sounded really weird. I told him that maybe he heard a mountain lion, as I had heard them on several occasions. They make really strange sounds, like inhuman woman screaming and bloody murder. He said it didn't sound like a scream, and he took off running down towards our grandparents' house, calling for me to follow. So I ran after him. Halfway to our grandparents' house, I heard the sound. We both stopped in our tracks. I yelled to him, "What the hell was that?" He excitedly replied, "That was the sound I heard. That's it." I had heard a lot of strange sounds growing up in the deep woods over the years. Alien calls, ruffed grouse beating their wings, coyotes, etc., but never anything like this. I can't really describe the sound except for that it was a high-pitched tone from a living thing that was very resonant, powerful, and well-controlled in its execution. It made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Oh. Witnesses here, a powerful vocalization near the property in the Flathead Reservation. If you wanted to look that one up, it's continuously longer than that, but that gives you the general idea of what happened there. Wow. Anything that'll make the hair stand up on the back of my neck, I want to get away from. I either want to kill it or I want to get away from it. Not sure which. Again, a woman reports sightings at the edge of the backyard, again in the Ivaro area of the Flathead Indian Reservation, right near Highway 93 North. In mid-July 2004, I was on my back porch, faces east and faces a mountain. I live in the woods on the side of my house where the creature was. The house is scarcely wooded and the land is flat. The sun was shining, and the reason I went outside is my dog started to bark and run through the house. They got halfway through the dog door, stopped, and whined. So I went out and sat on the back porch. Then I saw the tree to my left move, and the tree was about 300 yards away from me or less. I'm bad with measurements, which most people are. By the way, don't feel bad about that. So I watched the tree to see what caught my eye and then saw the creature. It was behind the tree, looking out from behind it. Its head inches as it was hunching. Its head was large and it had a definite brow. I thought I was seeing an orangutan, except it was about 6.5 feet tall. It was moving its head around the tree to watch me as I stood up to get a better look. Its hair was a rust color, like the color of dead pine needles. Its eyes were haunting and was completely silent. It was watching me while I was watching it. I sat back down. I watched outside for about 6 minutes and didn't tell the person on the phone. I don't know who she was talking to on the phone. Then when I went in the house and watched through the window to make sure it wasn't a trick of shadow, moved in front of the tree, staying hunched over but watching me in the window. I watched a few more minutes, then went out the back of the house, and when I went out the back, it was gone. While this was going on, my kids were in the front yard playing in the water. I think if the creature had been aggressive, it would have made some sort of move, but it seemed peaceful. It seemed to be curious. I think it was young to be in such a vulnerable open area. kind of agree with you. A lot of times the young ones will make mistakes, especially young males that get pushed on by older males or even mom trying to keep them from breeding with their sisters. It happens. Look at the gorillas. We really only have a couple of large primates to take as examples for them, and gorillas is one of them. Anyhow, biologists observed a biped on a ridge outside of Missoula in the year 2006, September. It was in the Lavelle Creek area on private lands, Butler Creek Road. Horseback riding one afternoon, I observed a large, black, upright creature along and just below a ridge to the east of me. Chris and I continued to climb the hill to get a better vantage. The creature apparently realized it had been seen or saw us and ran back in the direction from which it came. It was very tall and black. I thought it was a bear at first, but it was upright and extremely fast as it ran. Broad daylight in the afternoon, kind of cold, but very clear, sunny day. There was a follow-up investigation to the area and a map to go along with it that found it a credible type of sighting. Now, a biologist, definitely isn't going to make up a Bigfoot sighting. It doesn't further their career if it doesn't actually hurt it some. So I like those kind of reports. Okay, here's another one. Fisherman finds possible footprint on the Flathead River near Paradise. It's 2012, springtime, March. Was near Perma Road on Paradise, Montana. I was fishing in March of 2012 on the Flathead River in Montana, about 6 miles west of Perma, heading towards Paradise. I had to use the bathroom and was headed to the outhouse at the fishing site when I seen a very strange footprint. So I took a picture of it. It was made by something with a very foot. No shoe made this print. The only thing is the print was there for a bit. How long, I don't know. It was cold and breezy, so for someone to be walking around with no shoes, I doubt it. I'm going back to April 3rd, 2012, and we'll see if we can get a cast made of the print. But apparently they went back and the print was too old to cast. But there's pictures of it that looks kind of like an impressive size in the sand right there, and it does actually have looks to be some toe prints. So it's kind of interesting. Is when you're talking about the areas that 6 or 7 other sightings actually come out of course you should be able to find tracks in those types of areas as well. All right, and finally we're gonna get to our last Bigfoot report for the night. Morning Hike turns a veterinarian, I always want to read that as vegetarian, and her family into believers near Missoula. That's right, July 20th, summertime. The Waterworks Trail off of near I-90. I'm a small animal veterinarian in Western Massachusetts. In July 20th, 2012, we were visiting our daughter in Missoula, Montana. We hiked up Waterworks, a ridge on the other side of I-90, around noon. We stopped to catch our breath and noticed a very large, dark, unidentifiable object on our far ridge next to the power line poles. It was unmoving, absolutely stock still for minutes, maybe 5 to 10. We stood there looking at it, wondering what it was. All of a sudden, it turned and looked and took several large steps and disappeared over the ridge. We had my iPhone, and by the time my daughter pushed the button, he had gone over the ridge. We did get a picture of his head and shoulders, but to be in the pictures, I don't know the pictures. Maybe there's something there, I guess. It's report 40412 on the BFRO website if you wanted to search that and see the pictures of it itself. I don't share this material online because you should actually go out to the site and support them, give them their click, and check out the pictures online there, because it is, really their kind of a deal. So with that, we've talked about a whole bunch of areas here around 93. I would expect that any of these ridgelines are going to hold actual Sasquatch, but I don't know how many people actually go Sasquatch hunting in Montana to have, those types of investigations going on. So with that, it's time to talk a little bit about the El Dorado Bigfoot Watch. That's right. Last week, I told you guys we're starting a brand new project in the El Dorado National Forest here west or east of Sacramento. And so I talked about game cameras. That's right. Game cameras is one of the things we're going to be doing. They're live investigations. We're going to be doing bug out survival types of weekends as well, especially with the types of things that are happening worldwide with disasters. That type of information is going to be kind of fun. But some of you said that you had game cams you weren't using, broken game cams, cams that you have upgraded from. I'll take your junk and put it back to work. So if you have some cameras out there that aren't being used and you're willing to put them in a box and send them to me, then get a hold of me via Facebook, get a hold of me at sloungepodcast@gmail.com, and I'll take them. I'll give you my address, send them to me, and I will get them out there in the field working, because I really, really believe that this area is the wintering ground for the Sasquatch and the High Sierra, and the winter time is coming. So I'd like to get a lot of these things in there soaking before the snows start to fall in the High Sierras. So if you've got, I don't care. I'm not looking for expensive cameras. I'm looking for average cams. I'm looking for junk cams. Walmart has a $20 cam. That is perfect for the situation. It takes time pictures. It's 5 megapixels. It can be put on high vantage points, and that's exactly what I want to do with these things. I don't need $300 cameras. So if you want to sponsor a cam for the El Dorado Bigfoot Watch, go ahead and get a hold of me. I can send you a link, and you can have it shipped directly out to us, and we'll put it in the field for you. If anything comes up on your cameras, you'll be the first ones to know, and you will get those pictures before we release them to the public as well. So there's a little bit of reason to get behind the project. The El Dorado Bigfoot Watch is going to be in full swing by the end of the month. So that's what we're talking about right now. And with that, we're actually going to wrap up this edition of the Squatchers Lounge podcast. We do have a Bigfoot campfire story for you tonight. That's right. Unfortunately, I don't have any Bigfoot campfire stories out of Montana, so we're going to throw a red-eyed Bigfoot campfire story at you from just outside of the El Dorado area in the low Sierras and Tahoe. Red-eyed Bigfoot attacks campers near Lake Tahoe. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you next week after a hangout coming up after the Bigfoot campfire story. And may the Squatch be with you. What the? You guys hear that? Holy crap. I'm pretty sure that's a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. Welcome to season 2. Welcome to season 2, episode 2 of Reverend Jeff's Bigfoot Campfire Stories. From time to time, a story comes in that really shakes a person to their core. When I first got the details on this one, I was truly shaken just a bit. 3 friends, Terry, Pete, and Trevor, went on a snowshoe camping adventure in the desolate wilderness and end up in a situation that only the strongest of wills might survive. Let's listen to their story. When Pete first suggested that Trevor and I follow him into the desolate ancient wilderness, I thought he was already mad. It was February and cold. But when he added our destination would be Dick Peak, well, and it involved snowshoes and camping in, 12-degree weather, I was sure he was insane. But here I was, picking both him and Trevor up. We're going to head towards Lake Tahoe to get this trip going. Pete was very experienced in snowshoe hiking, and he was a cold weather survival guide for several years, so I knew we would be safe enough. But wow, was this a scary situation. Well, Pete's 4x4 is pretty gnarly, and he's able to get us way up through Dick's Pass and on into Dick Lake. Well, that was about as far as he felt safe, so it was only 15 miles to Dick Peak. We should be able to reach that on day 2. Trevor was always down for anything, and he was a big surfer back in the day. He kept in fantastic shape, so the 3 of us should be able to pull this off without too much worry. Well, we set off from the truck about 10 o'clock that morning. I was surprised with the gear on our backs that we were able to stay on top of the snow, but sure enough, even in some very deep places, we just skirted along the top like it was nothing. If you couldn't tell, this was definitely my first snowshoe adventure, and I was a bit nervous about it all. We were able to make it a couple of miles in before we needed to take a break. Dick Lake was much bigger than any of us had thought, and there was a tree line around it that was just teeming with wildlife. We saw deer, a couple of coyotes, and all kind of flying raptors about, but the sun was moving on, and, well, so should we. We made it around the end of Dick Lake, and night was coming in fast, so we found a safe place to set up camp and put up our tent for the night. We had split up the weight of a 3-man tent between us so our body heat could keep us through the night. Brutal 12 degrees. It's all been all day. The night is going to get far colder. Well, Pete had wandered off to find some safe bathroom location, and when he returned, he told us of some very strange tracks leading back down towards the lake. He said they looked like a man's tracks, but much bigger. Then asked what could have made them. Well, Trevor and I set off with him to take a look, and sure enough, there in the snow, there were many, not just a few tracks leading in and out towards the lake. 1.5 times the size of mine and super wide, and I wore a size 12. Well, the sun was really falling off now, and it wouldn't be long before dark to see anything, so we headed back to camp, agreeing that we'd take a look at it more in the morning. But we managed to gather up a bunch of good dry wood on the way back to camp, so we set up a nice fire outside the tent so we could reflect it back on the heat of the rocks where the tent was set up. And sure enough, we had a nice warm pad to sleep on all night long. Well, it wasn't until about 4 o'clock in the morning and the fire had died down very low that we were awoken by something near camp. Well, I thought I had heard something, but all of a sudden, just then, there was a second call out. It sounded like a very deep monkey whoop. But there aren't any monkeys in California, let alone this high in the mountains. Now the three of us were awake and frantically getting warmer clothes on to go investigate. And we piled outside of the tent and strapped on the snowshoes and went for a look around. We yelled out to us first that he had found a set of tracks. We headed over to him, and sure enough, they were the same type of tracks, but far smaller than the ones we saw the day before. Well, Pete was a bit ahead of us and following the tracks back into the tree line, and then it happened again. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And the three of us froze in place and turned towards the sound. Well, all of us spotted it at about the same time. It looked like a small, hairy child. Reddish brown in color, about 5 foot tall, and it swayed back forehead with big brow ridges, and it was swaying back and forth between two trees. We were all kind of shocked. Trevor spoke first and asked if I see it, to which, of course, I said, yes, I see the little hairy monkey kid, and he almost spit with a chuckle. That was when we all figured out it had to have been a young Bigfoot. Then it took off in the other direction. Pete, being the adventurer, of course, started off after this thing with his cell phone in his hand, trying to get a picture. And we took off after him, yelling for him to stop. Finally, about 200 yards into the tree line, Pete did stop, only it was too late. And he slipped under a big pine tree and disappeared. We could hear him calling out faintly, so we made our way slowly toward where he disappeared. And sure enough, he had slipped beneath the branches of a large snowdrift pine tree. The more he tried to climb out, the more the snow piled in on top of him. Finally, they sent me back to camp to get some rope gear while Trevor kept an eye on Pete. And it took me a bit of time to get back to camp and back, as every pine I passed, I was terrified I too would slip below them or a Bigfoot would jump out behind and get me. Well, finally, I got back, and Trevor was close enough to Pete to see him, and the ground was stable as could be. We tossed the rope down to Pete, and then ran the other around an exposed tree uphill and started to drag him out. And Pete tossed out his snowshoes first, and then he began to pull up, as what surely would have been his death had he been there by himself. Well, just as Pete got onto solid ground and began to strap his snowshoes back on, we heard another one of those whoops. But this time it was a bit more distant and much, much deeper. It gave us all the chills to the bone. And believe it or not, the morning just got away from us. By the time I got back to camp, it was really too late to pack up and move, even if just to go back to the truck on the other side of the lake, as the sun would surely fall on us before we reached it. We decided just to build a big fire and make a bunch of noise and hope it keeps the boogeyman away all night. Well, nothing much happened. Well, not until long after the sun went down. Pete and Trevor had piled the wood around the fire pit to help it dry out a bit, and it formed a big blind on one side of the camp, plopping out the wind, so it was kind of nice getting warmer by the hour as the rocks really heated up. Then, out of nowhere, we heard a low, soft whoop. We couldn't see, even though we had flashlights and all. Every time we thought we knew where the sound had come from, it would come from a different location. Well, just then, as Pete got up to put more wood on the fire, he froze in place, staring towards a tree. I got up and slowly walked over to him, and as I grabbed his arm, he whispered, "Do you see them? Do you see the red glowing eyes?" The red glowing eyes. Well, just then my eyes cleared from looking at the fire, and indeed I could see them. Several sets of red glowing eyes coming from the tree line, a couple of them moving from location to location. We quickly waved Trevor over to our location, but it was too late. It seemed like the glowing red eyes got brighter, and the most horrific roar you ever heard came from that direction, making all of us freeze in our boots and tremble with fear. That was when things got just a bit more crazy. Rocks the size of baseballs started raining in very close to where we were standing. Owl tree knocks slammed from the locations of the creatures as they were tearing down trees, and finally something towards us in camp. All I can remember are those red glowing eyes getting bigger and bigger as they got closer to us. Not knowing what else to do, as the creature passed the wood pile, he destroyed it as if it exploded, and branches flipped directly through the tent, just leveling it to the ground. Well, that was when Pete screamed out, "Head back to the truck," and we all made a break for it. We had all been smart enough to grab our snowshoes as we fled the camp, and only stopped long enough to watch each other's backs as we strapped them on, and off we were again. It had taken us nearly 5 hours to get around the lake, and when we arrived, but God only knows how long it would take now. I looked at my watch and saw that it was still hours before daybreak, and we still had a couple of miles to get back to the truck. From behind us, every once in a while, we would hear a faint whoop, as if they were following us, making sure that we left. Finally, several hours after daybreak, we could see the truck. It still took 20 minutes to get to where the truck was actually parked, and sure enough, there were trails of tracks, just like the first ones we had found, leading back and forth to the woods, as if something had been checking on the truck several times through the night. Well, we took no time to investigate, as we knew where that ended up, and Pete was turning the truck around. Before we knew it, we were already on our way out. It took us several hours to get back home, and along the way, we told a few people what had happened to us, and every one of us gave us the same look and nearly said the exact same thing. "That's a great story, fellas." But no one was willing to go back and look at the location. If you had asked me before this trip what I thought of Bigfoot, I would have laughed and moved on. Now, I'm positive they're out there. These three guys sure got more attention than they were looking for when the red-eyed giants showed up. Native stories tell us to be wary of the red eyes, as they are usually not very happy. After this story, I can see why. Thanks for watching. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.